Hello everybody, it's Count VHS, and welcome to the Fourth Age Total War, the Dominion of Men. Today we're going to start up a campaign as Far Harad, one of three Haradrian or Southron factions in the Fourth Age Total War. If you are new to the mod, this is a mod set in the Fourth Age of Middle-earth, so well after the events of the War of the Ring. And this is a mod that I've had some involvement with over the years as a writer and tester. And for the past, quite a few years now, I've been doing campaigns and guides and things like that on YouTube here. So I do have a couple of videos on Harad in terms of, how to generally run the faction, a campaign guide and a battlefield guide. And today I want to try to put that stuff into practice in a campaign. And it has been a few years since I've dived into this faction. It's a little hard to tell from the map here, from the colors, but the light brown, the tan color, is what we're starting with here. Far Harad is a really interesting faction in that it is one of the sort of a rare faction that has a corner position that is not advantageous strategically. You have a corner spot here, but there's a faction to the north of you in the Lordship of Khand, or the Chiefdom of Khand. Then you've got the Chiefdom of Rune above them. You've got the Kingdom of Adunabar here. You've got, of course, the Empire of Harad, which is pretty much running along almost all of your northern border. And then just to the north of them is the Principality of Harandor. So Far Harad starts off in actually kind of a pinched position here. There are a couple of rebel settlements to our north that will allow us to maybe grab some territories early, but my general strategy here is going to be to ignore those and go directly for the hopefully soft underbelly of the Empire of Harad. This is no doubt our biggest rival in the beginning of the campaign, make no mistake, and so we need to take them down as soon as possible if we have a chance of winning. Far Harad is estimated to be one of the hardest factions in the mod, and I'm not quite sure how I feel about that these days. We'll see. Like I said, it's been a few years since I've played it, but while they do have, a somewhat limited roster compared to some other factions, the units they have are really excellent if you use them in the right way. So we'll see some of that on the campaign map. We'll take a closer look at their strategy, take a closer look at the kind of units we'll be working with, and then go from there. But first, let's actually kind of read through the campaign description here. So it's estimated Laughing at Live Dragons difficulty, this is, again, estimated to be one of the hardest campaigns. We are, though, running it on the recommended settings. So medium campaign difficulty here called Decidedly Tookish, and hard battle difficulty here called Bull Roaring. That's what the mod has sort of been designed for. So, though a distant region of the southern lands lacking in fertility, Far Harad is home to the large black-skinned warriors much sought after by the Empire. Ever outside the Empire's reach, however, Far Harad has grown stronger of late and is certain to come into conflict with the great power ruling in Umbar. Its northern neighbor, the Chiefdom of Khand, may prove an early rival as the Principality seeks to expand its sway. However, Khan's territories are unused to Haradrian leaders and may prove difficult to rule. A canny prince of Far Harad would seek to defend his lands against raids from the chiefdom while striking west to quickly topple the empire. The people of the Principality of Far Harad are Haradrian in culture. This land never came under the rule of the reunited kingdom or her allies, and so has ever remained hostile to the free peoples and resolute in following the ways of darkness. So let's jump in. All right, we've got, as always in the Fourth Age, there was a nice little intro video with some stills of the units and a bit of sum up of the campaign. So we'll take a look at this. The lands of Far Harad are perhaps the most remote to the western peoples of Middle-earth. It is a place of settlements linked by tenuous caravan routes and ever threatened by raiders, a land of harsh sun and scouring winds where allegiances shift as often as the desert sands. Few cities may be found here, but those few are led by canny chiefs, each answerable to the Prince of Far Harad. And the Prince, despite his title, which is no more than a courtesy to the more powerful Emperor of Harad, answers to no man. The Empire has often led its armies into the wastes of Far Harad and often claimed its ownership of these lands. Each time, however, the Principality won back its independence. Harad's recent war with the reunited kingdom has given the Principality another occasion to prove its own strength. Perhaps, distracted by wars on other fronts, the Empire will be unable to prevent the rise of Far Harad. Perhaps if the strike is swift and hard, the Prince will even lead his tribal warriors to Umbar itself. And yes, that is some hints there as to the best strategic approach for the faction, I think. we'll see how it goes. There are some things we have working against us. So let's start with that. This is our capital here, Athencaris, and let's take a look at the units first, and we'll go from there to figure out how we can best use them. So I actually want to, let's see, let's remember the buttons here. Let's go to the project browser. So you can see that we are a 3-tier military development faction. Most factions, I think, in this mod are 4 tiers. They have a 4th level of like barracks buildings, and some have 5. Like Umbar has 5, Reunited Kingdom has 5. This actually is a secret advantage because it means you don't have to develop up to this major province level in order to train all your best stuff. And when you're developing lots of provinces, this a low ceiling, I guess, can actually save you a lot of money and just simplify things. So in our homelands, here's what we're going to get, and this will of course change throughout the campaign as we expand to different regions. But in our homelands, at the 1st tier, we get Desert Footmen and Southern Skirmishers. The Desert Footmen are nothing special. They are a sort of a typical Haradrian unit. They've got lots of numbers. They're very cheap, 80 Mirian per man in upkeep, and 110 soldiers. So this is going to be your garrison. This can fill out an army, to just add raw numbers if you need some flankers, but do not expect anything from these guys. And then we've got Southron Skirmishers at tier 2, and this is where things immediately get interesting. And this is why I think Far Harad is a lot stronger than most people think. So Southron Skirmishers, bonus fighting riders, bonus versus riders, and large creatures. This is the anti-elephant bonus. But this applies not only to Mumakil, which we will be facing soon, but also trolls. So those are both sort of coded as elephants in the game. So this is a great unit to have in this part of the world where we're going to be dealing with at least a couple of units of Mumakil, and potentially against the Dunabar if they get down here with Olag High. Hopefully not. The other thing about this unit that is great is that it is effective against armor. Now, I'm not sure if this applies to the javelins or to the spears that they wield in melee or to both, but regardless, these are really, really strong. And the secret thing about this unit is that they frighten nearby enemy infantry. In addition to all the other cool stuff, combat bonus in the deserts, good stamina, they can swim, which is kind of an interesting choice for this unit, given all the desert bonuses and the relative lack of rivers in the region, but anyway, they've got a lot of versatility, so very strong against armored troops and scary against infantry troops. That's going to be very important for our early wars against Harad because a lot of their units, like ours, have relatively low morale. So these guys throwing some javelins, thinning out, maybe 10-15% of a unit, and then just being there scaring the infantry is going to allow us to do some really surprising things. So Southern Skirmishers are great. They are essential to Far Harad. Also, unit size upkeep are decent. 80 soldiers in a unit, 90 upkeep per unit. That's just tier 1, right? So at tier 1, we get a fear unit. Tier 2 here is where we get, a lot of other stuff, right? So we've got, of course, the Footmen, the Skirmishers. Then we get a Southron Spears unit. This is a sort of our first standard unit of the line. The Desert Footmen I would class as really just militia, just very bare bones. You train them if you need them or to hold garrison. But these guys you can count on a bit more. And we also get Swords of Harad, which is an excellent unit for tier 2. And this, once we get to the point where we can afford to send a lot of these guys out, we're going to be in a really, really good position. Swords of Harad are a javelin unit as well as a melee, sword and shield unit. Their missile attack is, not the strongest. I think our skirmishers, it's exactly the same as our skirmishers. But the Swords of Harad have, I think, fewer throwing spears, but it doesn't matter. They get a couple of casts in, and then they can still do a very strong showing in melee. Also, this is a good defense stat, 21. The Southron Spears have 18. Footmen have 12. The Skirmishers have 10, right? So Swords of Harad are really our first really all-rounder unit that has quite good defense and, has some of that staying power. Then at Tier 2 also, we benefit from our first Archer unit, Red Sand Archers. This is a extremely cheap 60 upkeep per turn. So 80 men per unit that's good for an archery unit. Compare that to, I think it's 60 men per unit, or maybe it's even fewer in like the bowmen of Gondor that the Reunited Kingdom gets, the higher tier bowmen of Harad, which have better armor, I think better morale, better stats all around, but do not have as many men per unit. And we can just outproduce them in terms of cost. So once we get our economy in order, we're going to have lots of skirmishers with a core of some decent, stand in the line melee troops relatively early on. But I think, even more than Swords of Harad, because notice this is where the cost really balloons, 270 million per turn for upkeep there. So we're going to focus more on skirmishers and, do some hit and run with cavalry. So Haradwaith Riders, a really solid unit. It seems a bit pricey for what they are. It's 180, and they're very, very light. But they are fast moving with a powerful charge. They do get a combat bonus in the deserts. I think that's like 6 or so points getting added to their melee attack stat, which is quite low. So that combat bonus in the deserts is going to like more than double, I think, their attack. So excellent stuff there. But the real advantage with this unit is, quite honestly, the size. 64 men in a cavalry unit is really makes it a serious threat. So an advantage for Far Harad, despite the fact that it is, a relatively small principality here, only 3 provinces to start, we can get a lot of men in the field just because we have access to these large unit sizes. All right, so that's tier 2. We get cav, we get archers, we get spears and swords. So that's excellent. What do we get at tier 3? Tier 3 is not as big a leap, I think, in terms of new fun stuff. We do get some special kind of fun units, and these guys are kind of the signature. In my mind, if you're playing Far Harad, this is what you're after, right? Southron Champions. They're the unique, interesting flavor unit. However, in practice, I don't find them as decisive. They have a pretty high upkeep. Only 70 men per unit. This is a melee unit, and it's 230 upkeep per turn. They are scary against infantry, but so are your tier 1 skirmishers, right? These guys are not any more scary, and so where you would use them is already by virtue of the fact that they have the same fear stat as your tier 1 skirmishers, kind of questionable, right? They do get a bonus to riders. A lot of units get that. Right? I don't think it's a super high bonus in any case, but they've got 2-handed blades, kind of like almost like a Nodachi or something. It's just a big sword. They get a combat bonus in the deserts. Again, their attack stat is 15, which compared to the swords, which is the nearest sort of attack unit we can have, is quite a bit higher. It's 11 points higher than the melee attack of Swords of Harad. Even with that, though, you really want to use these guys in a very, very specialist role. So they will die under arrow fire. Their defense is only 14. Their armor is 4. That's the relevant stat versus missiles. So even in a stand-up melee, if they can't get a decisive win, they're going to take a lot of losses. They don't have War Cry either, so there's no way for you to get this attack number up higher. You're going to want to rely on that charge to give it a boost, and you're probably going to want to charge against a pinned unit into the flank or the rear. So, they do have their place, but at 70 men in a unit for this upkeep cost, it's going to be a while before we start using them regularly. So Southron Champions, really cool, but potentially restricted use. Horsemen of Far Harad, much more useful unit all around. Not much higher upkeep than the Southron Champions, 260. 48 soldiers per unit, so quite a bit fewer than our Haradwaith Riders, which is 64. And the Horsemen of Far Harad do have a potential to be more decisive in their charge stat. 19 charge here versus the Riders' 12 charge, right? So Horsemen of Far Harad are a great unit. We are going to be using them, and they're going to be sort of a decisive arm. But as you can see, we don't have like a really solid line just yet. Let's before we talk about that, let's talk about the Desert Guard here. This is our bodyguard essentially, and this is also an interesting unit. So bonus fighting riders, which is what you'd expect for a spear armed cavalry unit. Combat bonus in the deserts, like all of our units, and frighten nearby enemy. So this is different from frightened nearby infantry, right? This is all enemy units, cavalry included. So we've got a really excellent, from the get-go, ability to just decrease the morale of whoever we're fighting. We get a few units of skirmishers in our army, and we have a Desert Guard unit leading it, which we will. These are our family members. And we can scare just about anything on the battlefield from really early on. So that's an excellent, excellent bonus. However, battles in the south are kind of swingy initially because Harad gets some scary units too. Their bodyguard, the Serpent Black, is sort of a cataphract archer, which is also scary against the enemy infantry and cavalry. So the initial battles are going to be kind of touch and go because we're all going to have sort of a desert advantage, us and our Haradrim enemy, at least in some of the battles. And we're all going to be scaring each other. And so it could be a lot of back and forth. Sort of an interesting dynamic there. But what's missing is, yes, like a solid spear anvil. You don't really have much of an anvil as Far Harad. The closest maybe is our Tier 2 Southron spears, 18 defense. I don't know that I would expect too much from these guys. They don't have any notable morale, which means it's just kind of average. And so we're going to have to rely on skirmishing and missiles and cavalry and fear to get the guys running. So that's what we can sort of expect. Now, outside of our homelands, we will get a few other options. Most notably, we will get the potential to train Mumakil ourselves. This was added in a patch to the mod. And the way it works is, if we can take over a province in Harad, the Empire of Harad, that begins with a Mumakil training grounds specialization building, we can use that building to train Mumakil ourselves. Now, we do not have the ability to make that building because we are a sort of minor faction. We're very limited in what we can build. You know, again, just taking a look at the building browser, we don't get specialization buildings at all. That's restricted to some of the, the more advanced or the more, legacy, I guess, factions in the mod. But in a later patch, Webber, who 84, who was the sort of lead designer at that point, took mercy on the minor factions and included the option for them to at least make use of specialization buildings created by other factions, as long as it made sense. And so for Far Harad, this is a very dramatic change. So now we get elephants, we get Mumakil, if we take a province that has a specialization building that allows that. And I happen to know that such a province exists from the beginning of the game right about here. I can't remember the name of the province, but it is near Harad West. They start with an elephant Mumakil training ground already in place. So we want to get this early, make sure that we preserve that, and then eventually we'll be able to train our own Mumakil, which will be an interesting addition to our kind of tribal skirmisher sort of hit-and-run army, right? So that's one option there. Okay, so let's take a look at strategically what I was talking about us being a sort of corner faction without any real advantage, and you can tell. It's just pretty much desert, plains, no rivers down here, no mountain passes, no choke points until we conquer sort of northward, right, where we will have a single crossing over the Harn in here that we can hold against anything coming from the north. We've got, of course, this shield of the FL Duath Mountains. And then up here, we've got sort of a choke point with this province, which is the settlement of Akarn, the capital of the chiefdom of Khand. If we take this, I believe the province here pretty much goes from the mountains towards the edge of the map or close to. And if not this province, then there is another one just to the north of it that does. So we can essentially get a one province border up here and then a one province border right here at the crossing, and we'll be pretty good. By that time, we'll be fairly close to done with the campaign. You do need 30 provinces. Of course, we start with 3. We need to conquer Akarn in addition to the 3 that we start with, but that's it. So the campaign for Far Harad is actually fairly wide open in theory. In practice, though, if you want to live, you got to take the fight to Far Harad. So let's do a little bit of scouting here. We benefit from a couple of scouts, which I forgot. And let's get the locations of some of these settlements uncovered. I can already tell right here by this blue flag that we do have a chief settlement here. This is a settlement of the Empire. This is going to be an important one for us to take at some point, but we may not want to take it just yet. Let's see. I think it's for Central Harad Wave. We've got another settlement right about here of if I remember correctly. Let's go north to see if we can find, yes, Akas Anabon. All right, let's get our spy right close to that. And do we have the Mumigal training ground? It's here. It's just covered up temporarily by the fog of war. If we get a little closer, we may be able to see it. So here we can see what we're going to be up against. Harad does start with some really good units. They've got some Spearmen of the Serpent, and this is a unit that I think we can train if we get this over. If we get over to Umbar. So if we get to the coast, we can start to train our own version of this, which will be a good, solid spear unit of the line. Harad is also going to be sending at us their Corsairs of Umbar, which is very solid, 17 attack, 24 defense, reasonable morale. These guys are going to fight pretty hard. And then they've got archers, Corsair archers. Not a huge deal, again, 60 men per unit, quite a bit of upkeep. So, you know, like fewer red sand archers per unit, more than twice the upkeep cost. But they also have a lot of cav, right? Horsemen of the Harn in here, and then here is the bodyguard, the Serpent Black. Frighten nearby enemy, arrows, good morale. So a really interesting all-around unit there. Okay, Akas Anabon is going to be one of our targets. Let's get the other scout. And there are settlements that are owned by rebels to the north of us. We've got, we start with this, Far Harad East, but to the north of us are the Khandian Drylands. I think another settlement over here. Let's go off to the west first. Okay, here's Naur Imloth. This province borders Akarn, which is, again, the only other province we need to take. But I think we're not going to head there just yet. As easy and inviting as this province looks to take, I think it would be a waste of our resources. One of the things that the initial video and preliminary text to the faction suggested was that if we go north to take out Khand, they're not going to share the same culture as us. They have the what's called the barbarian culture, whereas we have the Haradrian or Southron culture. That is also true for Naur Imloth. So it is, it's not really going to be something that's easy for us to hold. We won't be able to make a lot of use of it you know, until later. So I think we're going to have to leave that for a later time. We do have an assassin, interestingly. He doesn't have a lot of skill, just one subterfuge. But we'll use him as a spy for now to send him northwest, because there's also a Haradrian settlement here that is potentially going to be sending some units our way. So speaking of units, our starting units are a pretty good mix. Let's take a look at our generals here. This is the faction leader, the Prince of Far Harad. He's a good governor, competent commander, and let's see, he's middle-aged, so we've got him for a few years anyway, and he is intelligent, so it might be worth leaving him here to earn some money, get some local leader traits so that he can get some discounts on building and training. But I think we should start training immediately. Financially, we're actually kind of okay, although some costs are going to kick in a turn or two. So our economy is by no means secure just yet, but we've got 40,000 to start. So let's see, we've only got one archer. I think I want another one immediately. In Anorlith, we've got no archers and no capability to train them, but I think we want to go skirmishers here. 440, but we've got to do it. And in Adabara, skirmishers as well. We don't have any yet. Let's see, I guess we don't have any emissaries. So at some point we will do that, but I'm not concerned at the moment. We want to pretty much start attacking Harad immediately. Alright, so Athenkaris. We want to put all of our settlements taxes onto low. And what that's going to do is improve the opinion of our liege, or it's going to improve his authority, and all of the generals, the governors in our family, are going to like him better. And that means their job is going to be easier. So, let's see. I think let's do Estates and Farmlands Charter here. It's an easy build initially. This is going to allow us to develop the natural resources here. And in this case, that is incense. This is an extremely valuable trade resource. If I go into the trade summary scroll, we can see we are trading with Anorlith, and that is getting us 403 income. That is crazy. We are also trading with Karis Agar, both incense and wild game. Karis Agar is this province up here, or the settlement, owned by Harad. So if we get trade rights with them, that would triple. Of course, we do have trade rights with ourselves, so I guess that explains the 403 here for trading with Anorlith. Anorlith does not have incense, but Adabara does, and so that's probably also making us a fair amount. Yeah, okay, 172 here. So I guess we've got more infrastructure built in our capital, which explains the higher trade income there. We're also importing ivory from Athendad, but you know, once we go to war with Harad, we can lose, you know, this bit of trade income, but that honestly doesn't matter. It's going to be so much more worth it to get those for ourselves. The other annoying thing about our starting position is that Adabara here, which is the most vulnerable settlement, has no walls. So I think, as expensive as it is, you know, I'm tempted to immediately start building the minor province. Then again, if we do the fighting correctly, we may be able to keep Harad away from our settlement. Alright, he's the prince's heir here. We've got a dude of Anorlith. He's a competent governor and commander. Because he's the prince's heir, I think we want him in the field. He is lazy, though. But I think we need to use our guys as generals. So that's what we're going to do. Let's take everybody right out. He's a poor governor, but he is frugal. All right, let's see what the cost is here. 7840. If we take him out, and let's see. Let's move him right there. Yeah, 8,000. Okay, so we'll keep him in this turn. And I know that if I wait a few seasons, he's going to get the governorship and some traits that will improve the cost even further. So I think I'll wait for that to kick off. Feels a bit risky, but we also want to keep an eye on the very dangerous units of Harad and their armies, see what their armies are doing. So we'll send our spy moving off to the east. We want to see what's over here. In Anorlith, we're training. And I think I can risk building. So we want probably mustering fields here. Let's give him a couple of turns to get that trait before we start getting the expensive buildings underway. And yeah, we'll do that. I think that's everything. Let's check our diplomacy real quick before we end the season. We start off with an alliance with Harandor, and this is a military access alliance. Now, technically, we have trade rights with them, but we can't trade with them because they're off, you know, across the Harnan. Once we capture a province that borders them, though, we can start actually trading. So this is a great alliance, and we want to make sure that we use it to the best of our ability. So let's see what the AI is going to do here. Typically, we're going to hear from a Haradrian emissary before too long. Okay, so Harad and Rohan are going to war. That's just because of Rohan's alliance with the Reunited Kingdom. Alright, that's the biggest news for us. Alright, we've got some training. Project's finished, and yes. So, here we go. Now that the costs are properly factored in, you can see that we're actually losing money. But Akis Anaban is pretty unprotected at the moment. So, here we go. Mumikil Training Grounds. If we capture this, while that is still intact, we get to train Mumikil. So, obviously a great unit. I mean, to be fair, the Mumikil are not going to be the answer to our problems, but they are going to be very, very useful to have at certain points. So, there's the Mumikil army right here. Tanari of Karis Agar. Harad starts with a single unit of movement kill, which is 2 of the elephants. And they're in this army. So what I want to do is keep this agent shadowing him. And we don't want to actually spy on him, but we just want to see where he's going. If he's going off into the east, that's great news for us. Alright, so here's a rebel army. We can just ignore that, I think. I know that there's another settlement over here. There it is. Okay, Alagos. So the Khandian Drylands and the Khandian Southlands. So this means that we've got a bit of a buffer between us and Khand. Okay, here's East Khand. There's a settlement up here, and there's another settlement here. So maybe we'll go up to just see where that's located, and let's find Karas Agar if we can. There it is. Alright, so they've got about a quarter of a stack inside, and there could be other things there too. We'll have our spy check out the settlements, and then swing back west, just to keep an eye on all of this. Alright, it's probably not worth queuing up an incense workshop just yet. Yeah, that's not going to get us a ton of cash. And we are losing it. But the good news is Athenkaris is already built up. We can build anything we want here. So, given the fact that we're going to... let's see. We're going to leave this pretty much empty. And that's fine. That costs us a little bit, but gets us out in the field. We can train some skirmishers, which are kind of a copy of our own skirmish unit. Still scary, still good against armor, but fewer man, higher cost. So I think we want to get all of those guys that we can. And I don't think we need watchtowers over here just yet. We'll move over in this direction and place one strategically. And I'll wait another turn because we don't need the mercenaries at the moment. But we may as well keep training stuff. So in this stack, it's a weird stack. We've got 2 skirmishers, 2 archers, 1 sword, 1 Southern champions, and a couple of cav units. So we've got nothing sort of to form a line except for that sword unit. Here we've got a bit more, but again, it's pretty light. So I want to have you and you wait to get your governorships. Let's go skirmishers again, skirmishers again. And in Anorlith, so here's one of the other, I guess, advantages of having just 3 tiers of military development is that you don't so much need to worry about the policy that the settlement is going to choose. So in this mod, depending on your faction, you have a certain policy that you have to set for each settlement. And that can be a military focus, which of course allows you to build the higher level barracks and a few other things, or it can be a financial focus, which of course allows you to build the higher tier merchants and a couple of other things. So do we want money or do we want troops? Well, for the most part, you don't need that many troop training facilities. And especially for Far Harad, right? You could argue that the 3rd tier is a little superfluous. Haradwaith riders are, the Southron champions are very niche, as we've said, and we can already train them at our capital. And horsemen of Far Harad, while great, we're not going to be able to field a ton of them anyway until later in the game. So we could go for a financial policy in Anorlith, which will allow us to get, our 2nd tier of barracks, which lets us get our archers, our basic cav, right, even swords of Harad, and is also going to allow us to get the highest level of trade buildings and all of that. So I think that's probably the best move here. We also, as Harad, actually get the administrative policy option, which is going to get us stuff like libraries, so places of lore here. It's going to get us, let's see, courts and gardens. Actually, is this... no, this does not require... Okay, I think it does. It's just that it's not showing up here just yet. Places of healing. Yeah, open military administrative. Okay, yes. I must be missing where that is. But regardless, we can make some use of admin policy, but I always view this as something to put like at those far afield settlements that are getting public order problems, or you anticipate may have some public order problems. So we're going to basically ignore that for right now. Let's, for the moment, go with this financial policy because it's relatively cheap. And we'll keep him in the settlement. We'll keep him in the settlement. We're not going to build anything else in the west or in the east at the moment, but we do want to keep training. So let's do... See, we're going to have 3 skirmish units with the mercs. I think I would like to bring with me a unit of desert footmen so we can use it as garrisons for wherever we're going to end up. Alright, losing 1,200 now, and we've got a new family member coming of age. Alright, we've got our lordships for our 2 provinces, that's awesome. And at our capital, we've got a poor governor but a competent commander. This is great, it's another cav unit, and this guy's going to be good to replace his dad in the field at some point. So, we'll definitely keep him. Let's just uncover that town. There it is, Lug, and then a Karn. So we'll see what Khan is going to do. Khan has a few options for early expansion. In my experience, they tend to go up for Mordor fairly early because there's a rebel settlement here that they're adjacent to, and then they can kind of, you know, swoop in around the Sea of Nirn. Hopefully that'll keep them busy for a while. Harad sometimes goes for this rebel settlement really fast. So we'll keep an eye on like the ownership of the provinces. Let's see. Let's go due north of this because we're going to find another settlement. There it is, Alag Rokbin. This is another place owned by Khan. And there's another one down here, so we'll keep an eye on that too. And also, the Elephant Army is off moving eastward. They're probably going for that rebel settlement, which is right about here. So let's just move over. There it is. Can't see the elephants yet, but trust me, they're there. And there is the... not their capital, but sort of like their secondary capital, Karenbad. Chief City, only a single unit inside, looks very vulnerable. But I'm not sure that that it really is. There could be another army right around here. So our 2 governors have the trait lordship of the place that they're in, but that doesn't quite give them the benefits yet. There's going to be another trait that they get that will get them some discounts. And so that'll be something to watch for, and that should be next turn or maybe the turn after. But meanwhile, we'll just use them here to train and get some, you know, better troops. Yeah, let's get a Desert Footman unit there, and let's get a 3rd unit of you. And Athenkaris. These guys are just very expensive. I don't think we want to train them just yet. Let's go with another archer unit. That will make 3 in this area. Okay. We're just getting close to the settlement. I think at this point we could see it with a watchtower. Yes. So we can at least see Karis Agar and what's around it. Still the same number of units inside, but there may be someone approaching this this settlement. All right, let's move you guys out. Yeah, we'll just have to keep feeding him units. Alright, there they are. The rebel settlement of Parchareb. Probably going to be their first target. Now, this is an interesting settlement because it allows training of these Parchareb tribesmen, which is a bow and spear unit. Interesting one. I think they've got 80 men per unit, maybe not quite that many. But they've got, you know, they're a tricky unit to deal with if you train quite a few of them. And I think this is a unit that just about anybody can train if they get this specific province. So Harad is probably going to go for it and probably going to take it. That's going to put them right up against Khan. Harad is probably also going to go after and take this. And probably shortly thereafter, they're going to be at war with Khan. If not us, right? Alright, so there's another bow unit. Let's just get them there, and then he can move kind of wherever. Okay. What I'd like to do is really keep an eye on this army, because I don't want to start a war before these guys have at least suffered some losses. So let's take a look at our news. Okay, Harandor, our ally, has attacked the Kingdom of Adunabar. So they have moved up to probably attack this province up here, which is interesting, but a little unfortunate potentially. Because it means that if Harandor is sending their forces north, they're probably not sending them south, and that means Harad is going to have a bit freer of a hand. So we'll just have to see how that continues to develop. Okay, yep, we'll get another skirmisher. I want like at least 4 skirmishers in you know, my serious armies. And a 4th archer here for the region. Okay, let's move down. Let's see if anyone's closing in on Naur Imloth. Because I'm quite sure there's another Haradrian army around here. But while we're doing this, you know, it occurs to me we should probably start buying up these mercenaries, because that'll reset the replenishment timer for the mercenary pool. So the sooner we get them, the sooner we'll get more, and that's just a kind of a unit that's less of a strain on our population. So we're still waiting for that, for the trait Attuned Governor, and not seeing it yet. All right, here's an emissary from Harad. And they want trade. Okay. So the question about this that I don't have the answer to is whether if we accept trade now and then attack them immediately thereafter, does that have any negative consequences for our like diplomatic standing with other factions? If it's anything like later Total War games, the answer to this should be yes, right? Like we're betraying them or attacking them before our trade treaty has been canceled. But I think canceling a treaty, which you can also do diplomatically, might also have a sort of a deleterious effect on your diplomatic standing. I'm not quite sure how any of this works, but in this case, I'm willing to do it and get some money out of it. Not that we're really hurting at the moment, but we will be, and we're always going to need cash. So let's try to counter and ask for some money. Will you pay like something as ridiculous as 5,000? All right, they will accept. Okay, well, since we're doing that, maybe we go nuts and ask for an alliance for 10,000, which is probably going to be refused. Yeah, and I don't know if it's a cost thing. It might just be that they would not want to ally with us regardless. So we've got trade rights with Harad. Now, in my view, trade rights is a little risky to accept. It seems to get the AI interested in you and potentially move them to attack you. I don't know if it's coded that way or if it's just an impression that I've gotten, but that seems to be the case. If you deny trade, it could sort of spur the AI's interest in your faction and start them attacking you. But we've now got our Attuned Governor here at Adabara. And at Anerlith, we do not have it yet, so we will start some building here. And we're going to go for our minor province. So that saved us about 1,000, maybe more. So, it's quite a ways off. What did that take us? 4 or so turns in. But I think it's worth it. And then, of course, this is going to take us 4 more turns. But once this is built, we can build a wall. We can just get a wooden palisade. And that's going to make me feel a bit better about leaving this with a tiny garrison. We also, just to note, we do get stone walls as Far Harad. So, we are a somewhat advanced faction in that regard. Okay. I don't know that I need to keep this scout on this army anymore. because we have our assassin kind of nearby, right? Yeah, he's right near them. So we'll just use him to scout, and we'll use this scout over here. Let's send our spy back in this direction. And Carenbad looks really empty. So there's their air. And looks really empty. So, like, we could hit Karasagar right now and potentially take it with a battle outside the settlement with no siege, right? If we get right next to the settlement, attack this army, the garrison comes out as reinforcements. It's probably a family member in there. We might be able to take it without a siege. But again, I want these guys to suffer first. So we'll play it a little bit more patient. I'll move. Yeah, I'll keep moving these guys over. And what do we want here? You know, maybe let's get some Southron spears. Alright, and you're not quite attuned yet. And I'd love to build mustering fields with a bit of a discount. So we'll wait, and then we'll move him out. But let's train first. Alright, now we've got 4 skirmishers in this army. And we've already got 4. Let's go for 5. So that Haradrian army is not moved, but it does include some good units. Horsemen of the Harnan, which are basically equivalent to our Horsemen of Far Harad. Alright, there's our attuned governor in Anorlith, and that will allow us to get a mustering field. So I'm going to go for that. That saved us several hundred at least. We'll queue it up. And yeah, we've got some trespassing already. So a dude of Alright, and we've got an army moving towards Carenbad. So let's see what this entails. Okay, lots of Corsairs, 2 archers, some good calves, some good spears. Alright. Until we get a wall built, which is going to be a few years off, I don't really want to leave this vulnerable. We could, you know, theoretically hit this army and take it out. Let's see what it has, if we can. Oh yeah, they've got a couple of guys, so that's going to be a no-go. Because I don't think we could beat both of them just yet. So, all the more reason to keep training. Let's in fact see if there's any mercenaries here. No, it's got the same pool. Alright, let's go for footmen. And, you know, we've got his discount already accounted for. Let's see what happens if we move him out. I think the cost doesn't go up even though the building hasn't started yet. I think we're good to do that. Okay, so let's leave 1 unit of footmen behind. We'll move you guys more west than east, and we want to be able to lunge at Carenbad here and take it quickly. Alright, Athencaris. And, you know, I think I want some cav now. So let's go with a cheap 1-turn cav. And, yeah, we're still going to wait for that. The spy is actually in a decent position right now. But actually, let's move him down southwest so I can see if anything else is happening here. Alright, we're attacked right off the bat. Okay. So they were just assembling to attack me in my settlement. Alright, so what do we got here? It's a Serpent Black unit. It is a unit of Palace Guard. This is a unique unit. Only one of these exists. Then they've got some trash. They've got some Footmen of Harad. They've got, well, that's the only trash, really, Footmen of Harad. They've got otherwise quite good stuff. So we're going to be hard put to it. So let's see how this one goes. All right, so we're defending our unwalled settlement here. Let's get them all deployed. But here's our Here's our bodyguard unit. A very cool looking desert guard. We'll get them off skirmish. This is just a default thing that all bodyguard units have to discourage the AI from throwing them away recklessly. But there's our Herodwaith riders. And that's all the cavalry we have. We've got one unit of archers. I really wish we had more here. And we do have Southron champions. That's fine. 2 units of desert footmen and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 units of skirmishers kind of scattered around. So the skirmishers are really going to be key. We don't have any swords here other than the Southron champions themselves. But looking at this, yeah, so these units are going to be a problem here. The Swords of Harad are going to do a lot of damage to us with their javelins, and they're going to be kind of hard to rout until the general gets killed. Corsairs of Umbar are also pretty tough. Spearmen of the Serpent. Here's the Umbar, or the Palace Guard, rather. An awesome-looking unit. And also a dangerous one because they improve the morale of all of their allied units because of this banner that they carry. Otherwise, it's like 3 units of footmen. Is that right? Yeah. And then we've got some cav, you know, which I'm not too worried about in the confines of the city. The city itself is a Haradrian plan, which is kind of unfortunate, right? It's kind of wide, and it means there's fewer choke points, but maybe that's kind of a good thing for us. Let's see. First, we'll get the footmen back in the plaza where they're not going to rout. And we can have the skirmishers all be here too. Something like that. And what else? I guess the champions can be like here. The archers are going to have a bit of a hard time because they're shorter than the skirmishers, right? The skirmishers are bigger, they're taller. So you want them in front of them. So yeah, I guess we'll do that. And is that really everybody? Yeah, I guess so. Okay, so we'll start the battle, see what they do. So the AI is typically going to leave its general back until they capture the walls. Then they'll move the general forward. But the Haradrian generals are kind of tough because they are an archer unit. They are going to skirmish, and so it's typically harder to kill them fast. I mean, we'll see what they do. Otherwise, I think that's their only fear unit. Okay, there he comes. Now, there's no need for our general to be nearby for the sake of morale. So we could, start bringing our cavalry out and around. I think they're just going to come down this channel. Alright, let's do it. Let's go after him. Firing at somebody. So by doing this, we're potentially keeping their general away from our troops. Not that the fear effect is going to matter. We're in the plaza. Oh, and we're going right for the charge. Okay. They did not back off at all. Down to 12 men, 11. 10, 9, awesome. Seven men. Alright, there's their cav, which thankfully is coming towards the plaza. Alright, we want to kill him fast. Kill that general. He's down to just 4 men. Routing. Oh, kill him, kill him, kill him. Oh, come on. Kill him. There we go. All right. Here we go. We got some routing already. Hopefully that'll infect the rest of the army. There goes Spearman of the Serpent here. They're wavering already. They're routing. All right, we're going to come in, hit the archers in the back. The cavalry is there. All right, we're going to hit those Corsairs. Some of these guys are going to reform. Can we rout them? Broken. Nice. Okay, those are Spearmen of the Serpent here. There's some footmen. Yeah, let's follow the Spearmen of the Serpent. Actually, we'll do that. Let's hit the footmen as well. Awesome. But look how many losses we're taking. This champion, the Southron champions, are down to 23 men. All right, let's get here lined up for a proper charge into the back. All right, Southron skirmishers can hit the horsemen of the Harnan. We'll hit the footmen of the Harad. All right, nice. That should be it. We've got 32, then 39 men in this Desert Footman unit. But our skirmishers have done very well, of course, right? It's, what is it, 80 men at max? None of them have lost more than 10. So that's great to see. Obviously, we took a lot of losses with the champions. Some of that's going to be like friendly fire, I guess. Some of that is just javelins from the swords of Harad, I suppose. But we took some really dangerous units there. Like, I don't even know where the Palace Guard is. Okay, here they are. So let's just pull you guys all back. Everybody relax for a second, because this, you know, we're going to be fine here. All right, we get our cavalry up. Yep, there we go. Great. We'll continue. We'll make sure this is all cleaned up. There goes the last of the Palace Guard, and we just sit here because we've got archers to shoot at the rest of them. Let's get the skirmishers. See, this is the issue. You got friendly fire because the archers are shorter than the skirmishers. We'll move everybody out of the way of the bows. And that was a full stack-ish of Harad that we've just wiped out. Including, what is it, 2 units of Corsairs, I think 2 units of swords, that Palace Guard unit, a very dangerous cavalry unit, which is their horsemen of the Harnan, and a family member. So all of that stuff is really good to get rid of. This is actually a great battle for us in retrospect. I was a little concerned going into it because, again, the confines of a settlement are not ideal for skirmishing, really, but we've got a big enough plaza that we can actually exploit the size of it to get some good shots with arrows and the rest of it. All right, so I'll clean this up, and I'll see you back on the campaign map.
Victory is ours, mighty one.
Great, so that was a heroic victory. Adabera is safe for the moment. And we're not the jerks, actually, right? We get trade with Harad, and what did I say earlier, that I suspected trade rights were sort of a prelude to war? Yeah, we get trade rights, and then the very next turn, they grouped their armies together and hit us. Now, of course, you can't really read too much into that. The AI in Rome Total War is typically very aggressive when you share a border with it. But we are now at war with Harad. Fortunately, we've still got an ally in the Principality of Harondor, and that should prevent them from allying with Harad, so hopefully they'll come in and join us, because I could really use the help, honestly. But now we've got a bit more of an income problem because we're no longer trading with them. But at least we soaked them for a bit of cash while we could. So, where do we go from here? Well, Parcharab has fallen. I'm not sure if there's that many elephants left. There may be. But we'll wait. Typically, there's like a rebellion here. And, you know, it might be worth getting a spy up here just to see some buildings. Alright, they've still got, I think this is still all of the men. Maybe not. They may have lost a few men, but they've still got 2 elephants for sure. They definitely lost some guys taking the settlement, so that's really good to see. In terms of sabotage, we could do this, but the rate is so low, I think I'll hold off. And we'll just see what happens, because as they leave this province, Khan may decide to come in and join them, or contest them for that province. Let's get these guys up here. And we want to be very aware of this. So, no sieges active, and this is still in the hands of rebels, which is good. This army hasn't moved. And I think these are the only armies, actually, around, for Harad anyway. Alright, so what is this? 2 more seasons before we finish the minor province. Then we can start on a wall. And our income is dropping, but I think we cannot afford to stop building. So we'll do, you know, we'll do what we can do, which is skirmishers. We'll go a little crazy on skirmishers on this side of the world because it's really all we can do. And we'll get a spy up here to see what kind of troops they've got and are moving around. And there's still hardly anything at Karenbad. So, is this a good time to go? We could besiege it this turn, and I think the only army that could hit us is this family member. So it would be this army, our heir, against 2 family members and something else. And then I don't think this army could reach it. So let's do that, actually. We're going to set this up for the next battle. Oh, they do have something else. Oh, damn. Okay. Let's hit it, and they want to fight. All right. So this will be how we open the next episode, guys. We're going to do a quick battle here against a general-less army. This is going to be an army only led by a captain, which is going to hurt their morale more. They do have 2 archers, which is really sad because we don't have any. So we're going to have to run up quickly, throw javelins, kill this guy, which shouldn't be too much of a problem, kill the archers, surround them, and then kill the infantry. And do that before they can all rout and get back to Karenbad. I think we can pull that off, besiege Karenbad, and then hold out against a counterattack, and then get the settlement. This will be a really important first step for us, so I hope you join me for that episode. Take care until then.